But I first want to welcome everyone to Precinct 2 and just to let you know how much we appreciate everyone's help really from across the country as we recover from Hurricane Harvey. It's been really incredible the way everyone's pulled together and helped out each other, and it's made me very proud to be a Texan. So that's why I'm proud to also introduce a Texan that I happen to be very proud of, and that's Senator Ted Cruz. In 2012, he was elected as the 34th United States Senator from Texas in the rarest of all political events, a landslide upset in an election where nobody gave him a chance. But when you look at his life, you can see exactly why he overcame. His parents are from working-class backgrounds who started with nothing and rose up through education. Ted inherited their determination and intelligence. He graduated with honors from Princeton and Harvard Law, clerked for a Supreme Court Chief Justice, and eventually went on to serve Texas as the nation's youngest Solicitor General, winning a series of landmark victories before the Supreme Court. Named one of the 25 greatest Texas lawyers in the past 25 years by Texas Lawyer magazine, he served in private practice in Houston before rejoining the political battle for liberty and freedom as a candidate for Senate. Today, Senator Cruz serves on the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, the Armed Services Committee, and the Committee on Rules and Administration. The National Federation of Independent Business lauds his record for promoting economic growth, and this June he sponsored vital legislation to expand natural gas exports. Ted and his wife Heidi live in Houston with their 2 daughters. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to the man who is leading national voice for limited government, economic growth, and the Constitution, the Senator from Texas, Ted Cruz.
Jack, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so very much. Jack, thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you everyone for welcoming me here today. It is great to be with you. These are challenging times. These are challenging times for our state. What I want to do this afternoon is really talk about 2 things. Talk about, number 1, Hurricane Harvey and what it has meant for the state of Texas, what it is we've gone through. And then number 2, the second thing I want to talk about are the major priorities for Congress and for the administration going forward in the next 4 years. But let's start with Harvey. Harvey was a storm unlike anything we've ever seen. Many of y'all, like me, grew up in Houston. We're used to hurricanes. You live on the Gulf Coast, that's part of living on the Gulf Coast. Periodically you have hurricanes. I remember as a kid when Hurricane Alicia came and we sheltered in our bathroom, had a tree come down in our front yard. We've never seen a hurricane like Harvey. The damage that Texas endured this past month is unlike anything else. As you know, when it landed, it made landfall south of here, slamming into Victoria and Rockport and Port Aransas and Aransas Pass and Refugio, doing enormous damage. Category 4 hurricane, 130-mile-an-hour winds. I've been down to every one of those communities multiple times in the last couple of weeks. The damage was massive. I remember in Refugio seeing a small airplane that had been plucked out of a hangar, tossed about a quarter mile, and plowed into the ground nose first, and was resting with the tail against the back of a building. Seeing communities with massive wind damage, home after home after home destroyed, businesses taken down. Rockport seeing just about every light pole and power pole knocked down as they had no power, no water, no sewer, no nothing coming out of the storm. But then, as you know, the storm wasn't done. It moved from there, it moved north and east, and it parked over the city of Houston. And it just stayed there for 4 days. Sort of like your in-laws at Christmas. it didn't have the decency to move on. That's one of the things I've tried to share with my colleagues in Congress that made this storm differently, is normally you get hit by a hurricane, it does damage, and it moves on, and you come in and pick up the pieces. Harvey stayed and dropped 51 inches of rain on the city of Houston. That's about our average annual rainfall. 4 days it landed on this city. And we saw massive, massive flooding. Many of y'all I know here, your homes may have been flooded. The damaged neighborhoods all around, Meyerland, badly flooded, Bel Air, Kingwood, Dickinson. Just came a few minutes ago from Alvin, helping a man there demo his house. He had flooding. He had purchased the house in foreclosure, had just fixed it up and redone it. And now everything he'd put in, we're there with hammers ripping it all out. The Addicks and Barker reservoirs, when they flooded neighborhoods that had never flooded. A couple of weeks ago, I was riding on an airboat through one of those neighborhoods with water up to the rooftops. You could see children's toys from the backyard floating at roof level. House after house after house. You could see attics, roofs that had been chopped in either by an axe coming in from the outside or someone inside breaking out as someone had rescued those people by helicopter or by boat. We went down Clay Road, northwest Houston, big thoroughfare there. I became a Christian at Clay Road Baptist Church. Clay Road was under 8 to 10 feet of water. Clay Road just looked like a lake. We're going right down the middle of Clay Road, going over cars. You can't even tell there's a car under you. You're so high you don't even hit the top of the car. As we were headed down with a constable right down the middle of Clay Road, an alligator swam in front of us. I actually tried to convince him. He had his gun, just shoot the thing. I mean, we could use a new pair of boots. I mean, you might as well be resourceful. And then, as you know, it didn't stop in Houston. It kept going east. Slammed into Beaumont, Port Arthur, Nederland, Orange. All of those I've been to multiple times in the last few weeks. The damage there, massive. The flooding, massive. Home after home, business, school, courthouses, badly, badly flooded. What's hard for people to really grasp is the geographic scope of this storm. It's 250 miles from Corpus all the way up to Louisiana. The damage just keeps going and going and going. And I'll tell you, as we went through this, and most of y'all, like me, you were in your homes when this was happening. I was at my home in Houston with my girls, with Heidi. While the storm was coming in, we saw the water coming up our front lawn. Thankfully, it didn't flood our house. But thousands of others were not so fortunate. What was amazing, though, watching it, was the heroism that Texas displayed. The incredible heroism of police officers and firefighters and EMS who risked their lives to save others. The Coast Guardsmen, the National Guardsmen, thousands upon thousands. And then the best of all, the most amazing of all, are there just thousands of ordinary Texans who went and jumped in a boat to save their neighbor. Rednecks in bass boats. The very best of Texas. I was at the Harris County Emergency Operations Center. They have an entire wall with nothing but Post-its on it. Because when the flooding started and the Harris County judge and the mayor of Houston put out a call, if you've got a flat-bottom boat, if you can help, we need your help, they got inundated with calls. Every post-it had a name, where they were, and a cell phone. And the Harris County Emergency Operations Center basically operated like a dispatch. People would call in 911, and they'd pick up the phone and call someone on their cell phone and say, okay, your neighbor 6 blocks over is in trouble. Can you go get him? Last several weeks, I've spent a lot of time meeting with firefighters and Coast Guardsmen and all of the different first responders. One of the amazing things is they'd get out there to rescue people. Half the people they went to rescue were gone already. Somebody else had already rescued them. It was really the spirit of Texas that we saw as we saw neighbor helping neighbor, friend helping friend, Texan helping Texan. And it wasn't just our state, it was people from all over the country. The George R. Brown Convention Center, when it was stood up as a shelter, I was there one morning helping serve breakfast, serving oatmeal. I turned to the fellow next to me, I said, thank you for being here, thank you for helping out. And he started laughing, he said, I got to be here. My house is flooded, I don't have another place to sleep. But instead of just sitting on his cot, he was going to volunteer and help run the shelter. 2 gentlemen at the George R. Brown I went up to, asked what I tried to ask everyone, how are you doing? How's your home doing? 2 different gentlemen gave me a response, said, I don't have a home. I'm homeless. One of them says, I sleep under the bridge. They were both sitting there with brooms volunteering to sweep the George R. Brown Center. So they were seeking shelter and at the same time working to help others. Virtually every group of firefighters I've met with or police officers I've met with, they've got firefighters and police officers whose own home were flooded, who were sleeping at the station and out rescuing others. Heard of one Coast Guard pilot whose home flooded, and he had to basically hike several blocks through waist-deep water to a parking lot where they sent a helicopter to pick him up because he was a helicopter pilot, and they needed him to be out saving others. The stories, the generosity, the compassion. Down in Aransas Pass, there's a car dealer that was pretty badly damaged, had over 100 cars damaged, had the showroom pretty badly damaged, opened it up as a distribution facility to give away food and clothes and diapers and everything people needed. And I was down there, and you'd go to each car, and you'd see a young mother. And so you'd bring a couple of packets of diapers. Over and over again, her response would be, you know what, I'll just take one. There are other people who need it more than me. Port Arthur, devastated by this storm. I was at a church there, small African-American church, where there was a line of cars to pick up relief supplies. Just about every single car you'd come to and you'd say, how are you doing? And almost every person would say, my home is flooded, I lost everything. And I'll tell you what was incredible is almost to a person, they would follow it up by saying, but you know what? I'm alive. I've got my kids. And everything else we can rebuild. One after the other after the other. I have to tell you, in the past 3-4 weeks, I have never been prouder to be a Texan and to be a Houstonian. The love we have seen in our community. Friday, I was down in Rockport. There's a parking lot there where they're serving free meals. A pastor from down in the valley had driven up, figured, all right, what do they need? They need food. First responders need food. People need food. So he went and bought several giant barbecue grills. Drove up there and just set up a stand, started giving away 3 meals a day, cooking meals on the barbecue grills. Members of his church from the valley would drive up every morning 3 hours to get to Rockport, spend all day cooking, and then drive home 3 hours every night, only to turn around and do it again. In about 2 weeks, they served over 41,000 meals. That's Texas. That's who we are. I'll tell you also, we're already rebuilding. The days and weeks after the storm, the initial period, the devastation was shocking, but coming back to communities a second and third time, the difference in a couple of weeks is amazing. People are getting in there, they're ripping out the carpets in their house, they're knocking the sheetrock down, they're getting rid of the furniture. By the way, it has a tremendous impact when the debris gets pulled away. In terms of just feeling like, all right, we're starting a new page. You can see a dramatic difference. They're rebuilding. Port Arthur Elementary School was badly flooded. They've already ripped out the floors, ripped out the walls, and they're putting new sheetrock up. They're moving forward. Beaumont, you want an amazing story of local leaders and the private sector. Beaumont's water went out. The water went out because the water treatment plant was operating. But the pumping station that was pumping the water from the river was underwater and didn't have power and so couldn't operate. And so Beaumont ended up having big hospitals shut down. They had to send the patients everywhere else. They had to shut down their shelter because they had no water. And they ended up working with the private sector there to bring in some gigantic pumps, big pumps used in the oil field for fracking. And they set them up there along the river and ran hoses from the river to the pumps to the water treatment center. Put them on floating docks and just came in. And within a couple of days, they had water back on for the city of Beaumont. And it was local business just working with the community leaders saying, we got to turn this on. That spirit, the same can-do spirit that got us through the storm, is how we're going to rebuild. And it's going to take a lot of resources. I will say I want to commend all of the different leaders up and down the chain of government. It is the best cooperation I've ever seen between city and county and state and federal. We've seen other disasters where the different levels of government didn't work, where they have turf battles, jurisdiction battles, where they're going at it. We had virtually none of that in Texas. Had complete harmony. I spent a lot of the time talking to mayors and county judges and sheriffs and people on the ground. What do you need? And I'll tell you, throughout this, the consistent answer at every level of government, from the governor to the president, was whatever the state needs, whatever we need to get through this, Texas will get. We saw resources flow into this state during the crisis, and we've seen now tremendous resources beginning to flow to rebuild. Just 2 weeks ago, Congress passed a major emergency relief bill. House of Representatives, when they passed it, it was $7.5 billion. In the Senate, John Cornyn and I teamed up to double that to $15.25 billion, and that's what Congress passed and the President signed. Now, everybody recognizes that that's just a down payment. That on any measure, the impact of this storm is going to be orders of magnitude bigger than that. Many estimates are suggesting Harvey may turn out to be the costliest natural disaster in U.S. history. And I think that's entirely possible. But the $15 billion was designed to be the first emergency infusion of cash so that it was available, and it turned out to be fortuitous because obviously right behind Harvey was Irma slamming into Florida, and now you've got Maria hitting Puerto Rico a second time within a couple of weeks. So those resources are available to go to communities that have been devastated. But one thing that is also very encouraging is the Texas delegation is standing strong and united. We had a Houston City Council meeting that I went to a couple of weeks ago. And they asked me to speak. They asked Sheila Jackson Lee to speak. And we both were saying the same thing. We were standing side by side. In fact, one of the council members observed that Sheila was wearing red and I was wearing blue. That actually wasn't planned. But as we said there, as both of us told the city council, there are no Democrats, there are no Republicans. We are united as Texans standing as one. Then Sheila and I hugged, which may have ended both our political careers. But that unity is powerful. Earlier today, I joined House Speaker Paul Ryan, who was down here, and we went on a helicopter tour of a lot of the damage in and around Houston. We went up the Ship Channel, went over to Barker and Addicks reservoirs, went down, saw a whole series of the bayous and the flood control systems that are in place. And it was Paul and John Cornyn and myself were all sitting side by side in the helicopter touring. And I have to say, I think it really struck Paul, number one, just how big City of Houston is. That it just keeps going and going and going. And the massive scope of damage. That we kept going over another neighborhood or another neighborhood or another neighborhood where you're looking down and every street you see the contents of the houses on the front yard. And one of the things I was pointing out, I said, look, if you go in and rip out everything in your house, you throw out all your furniture. At one gentleman, apparently they're turning out the lights on us. One gentleman, I was with a group trying to help demo his house, and he started tearing up a little bit. He said, I was married in front of that fireplace. You think about what your home is. Your home is memories. Your home is where you raise your kids. Your home is where you spend Christmases and Thanksgivings and where you build a family. And it is really hard to look at all your belongings in a trash heap on the front yard. There was one woman we were visiting with we were helping pull all of her belongings and furniture out. And we found among the items that hadn't perished was a letter that she had written to Santa Claus when she was 9. That we were able to save. Also with that was a lock of her hair when she was 3 years old that had been carefully preserved in an envelope. But when we're flying with the speaker, neighborhood after neighborhood, we're pointing out, look at that. That's another street, another street, another street. Everything they own is in the front yard. And he was amazed at the geographic scope of it. So amazed, he turned the lights back on and then turned them off. And the scope of this, as I said, is 250 miles. We're going to have the federal resources that Texans are entitled to under statute. We're going to have massive state resources. And we're going to rebuild. But I know the men and women here, the engines of economic growth on the Gulf Coast. Everyone here is taking it on the chin in this hurricane. And yet that same spirit that drives the business sector, drives the energy sector, drives international trade, drives Texas. That's the spirit that will lead us to rebuild. And to rebuild stronger than ever. One of the things we spent a lot of time talking with the speaker about is showing the different bayou systems and saying, look, if we're coming in and rebuilding, let's rebuild in a smart way to minimize the risk of flooding going forward, so that we're not dealing with this again in years to come. You know, that Texas spirit, it's an amazing thing. And shifting now from Harvey to more broadly what's on the plate for Congress and for the administration. I think there are four big priorities. Number one, tax reform. I believe we can and will pass fundamental tax reform. What I hope it is a major tax cut. At this point, it's not clear what direction it'll go. There's disagreement within the House, disagreement within the Senate, disagreement within the administration. Other than that, everyone's on the same page. But there is widespread agreement that it needs to get done. And the advice that I have given the President on tax reform is principally two words: bold and simple. I think there is power to bold simplicity. Ideally, what I'd like to see is a simple flat tax, where every one of us fills out our taxes on a postcard, and we abolish the IRS. Now, some people say abolish the IRS. That's a little radical. That's a little extreme. You mean like electing Donald Trump as president? We're in a unique moment in time. And one of the things that I am urging the President and urging members of Congress, you know, politically, it is almost as hard to pass a small, piddling tax bill as it is to pass a major tax cut that unleashes the engines of economic growth. And so if we're going to do it, we ought to go big or go home. Second big priority, repealing Obamacare. Now, that's been something Republicans have been promising for 7 years. And so far, we haven't gotten it done. It has had some rocky weeks and months in the past weeks and months. I have a feeling I'm not the only person in this room frustrated with the Congress of the United States. I remember standing on the Senate floor just over a month ago, about 2:30 in the morning, when the Obamacare repeal bill failed by a single vote. And that was profoundly dismaying and disappointing. Look, the reason why Republicans have promised to repeal Obamacare for 7 years is we've seen the consequences of it. It's the biggest job killer in this country. Throughout the state of Texas, I hold small business roundtables where I'll sit down with small business owners in community after community after community in the state and just listen to them. Just open it up, talk about whatever issues. What are you thinking about? What are you worried about? What are you praying about? Every single small business roundtable I've done the last 5 years in the state of Texas, at least half of the small business owners list Obamacare as the single biggest obstacle in their business, driving up their costs. It's costing millions of people jobs, forcing them into part-time work, and its impact on health insurance. Millions of people have lost their health insurance, have lost their doctors, and have seen their premiums skyrocket. And I'll tell you, I think on Obamacare, we're closer than most people think. I've spent the last 9 months working day and night trying to bring Republicans together and get to 50 in the Senate. I think we're probably somewhere 45, 46, 47. I think we're just a couple of votes away from getting there. And I think the key to bringing people together is to focus like a laser on lowering premiums. Biggest reason people are unhappy with Obamacare is it's made premiums skyrocket. Average family's premiums under Obamacare have gone up over $5,000 a year. So I hear that from Texans all over the state who say, I can't afford health insurance for my family. Now, how do you lower premiums? All of y'all understand Economics 101. If you want prices to go down, you want more choices, more options, more competition. What does Obamacare do? Fewer choices, less options, less competition, and it drives the prices up. We may be voting as soon as next week on another attempt to repeal Obamacare, and if we can focus and actually deliver on lowering premiums and taking the burdens off of small businesses so that there's more jobs, more opportunity, and health insurance is more affordable for families who are struggling, that will be a big, big deal. Third big priority, regulatory reform. Pulling the oppressive regulations of Washington off of the backs of the necks of farmers and ranchers and small businesses. You know, I'm reminded a few years back, I was out in West Texas. And I asked folks there, I said, what's the difference between regulators and locusts? I said, well, the thing is, you can't use pesticide on the regulators. And this old West Texas farmer, he leaned forward and said, want to bet? It's one of the things we understand about in Texas. In Texas, we understand that if you create an environment of low taxes, limited regulation, if you unleash the private sector, the result is incredible jobs and economic growth. My number one priority each and every day in the Senate is jobs and economic growth. Why? Because that's the top priority of Texans. Every part of the state, doesn't matter, East Texas, West Texas, the Panhandle, or the Valley, the number one priority of Texans, we want jobs, we want more jobs, we want higher paying jobs, we want better opportunity for our kids and our grandkids and the next generation. And Texans get that's not going to come magically from the government. Government can screw it up, really good at that. It's going to come from the people at each of these tables. A couple of years ago, I was meeting with the CEO of a big company that had moved from California to Texas. And I was asking him, I said, all right, what challenges do you guys have? What problems are you all facing? We're talking through all the different challenges. And he said about a half hour into the meeting, he said, wow, I've never had friends in the congressional delegation before. And I just laughed. I said, well, welcome to Texas. I said, look, in Texas, we like jobs. I said, heck, even the Democrats like jobs. They don't know how to get them, but they like them. There is a common sense that our state gets that I think is fundamental to the direction this country needs to go. The fourth big priority for the President, the new administration, the new Congress is nominating and confirming strong constitutionalists to the Supreme Court and the federal courts across the country. For all of us, if you value the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, if you value free speech and religious liberty and the Second Amendment, if you value the basic liberties that are protected for each and every American, it is the courts that are right at the central role between either protecting those rights or undermining those rights. Those are the four big priorities. Now, if we deliver on those, if we see in the next couple of years major tax reform, fundamental reg reform, repealing Obamacare, and strong constitutionalists on the courts, this could prove to be the most productive Congress in decades. The impact of the country in terms of unleashing jobs and economic growth would be enormous. The impact on Texas of tax reform and reg reform and getting the burdens out of the way. Letting, for example, the energy industry lead the way, creating millions of new jobs. Letting the energy industry, in turn, create millions more new jobs in manufacturing, in petrochemicals. As we compete and beat our competitors on the world stage, not based on low-cost labor, but based on abundant, low-cost energy that Texans know how to discover and develop. That's what the opportunity is. The opportunity is massive for jobs and economic growth. The flip side, if we don't deliver, if we end up fighting amongst ourselves in a circular firing squad, and we can't deliver on Obamacare, we can't deliver on tax reform, we can't deliver on reg reform or on judges, then I think this would be one of the most heartbreaking missed opportunities in modern times. It's going to be one or the other, and as I stand here today, I don't know which one it is. But what I am spending every waking moment trying to do is bring Republicans together to do our job, to deliver on our promises. And that's the message. That's the message that I am giving the President, that I am giving senators, that I am giving House members. It's very, very simple. Let's do what we promised we would do. Whatever you said you would do in November, let's do it in September of the next year. If we do that, that will have an enormous, enormous impact on our country. And I want to finally say thank you to everyone here. Thank you for your leadership in the community coming out of Hurricane Harvey. Thank you for your leadership in your workplace, providing jobs, providing opportunity, driving the Texas economy forward. Thank you for your leadership fighting for freedom. It's a great thing about the state of Texas. We cherish freedom. It's in our DNA. It's who we are. And I appreciate the leadership of each and every one of you. And I say, particularly coming out of this tragedy, it is a blessed, blessed thing to be a Texan. God bless you.